it's just, it's a training, which is why y'all are here. Okay? Any questions about corrective actions? How those work? Okay, good. All right, so next. The documents generated. When you write an SOP, it's awfully nice if you say, okay, this is the documents that should fall out of this SOP. And in our case, it's the production log, which you guys have a copy. Okay, so the next section on your SOP is the procedure. What the heck are we doing? All right? And this procedure will differ between different SOPs. Okay, and this is the procedure that, you know, my company wrote for companies to comply with this SOP. All right? So here are the things that you need to know. When you receive beef, you must record the establishment number. If you are receiving Maine inspected beef, it has to have the, you know, like NE06 if you get it from Barry. You have to write down if it's what the establishment number is. Does anybody have any questions about establishment numbers? You all know that you have to receive beef from inspected facilities. Yes? Good. Okay. Should all have an establishment number. Okay. Those establishment numbers must send you lot numbers. Okay. Everything has to be lotted by law. If it is not lotted, you have a problem with your establishment. Okay. Try and get them to figure out something besides date and weight. Okay? Those can be very confusing lot numbers, if that's what you get. So can somebody give me an example of a lot number that they get? Do you guys know? Something that comes in that's lotted? Anything?
There's going to be a claim.
What do you get?
All the beef.
All the beef. So do you know how they lot? Because it's important for you guys to understand how your establishment lots.
I have a copy of
You have a copy of your, okay.
not one of ours, but I believe it's in Tyson. I don't see it a lot.
Hey, they're doing RFID line. All right, do any of you guys do RFID line? Yeah, so this is an RFID, that's the lot numbers in the barcode. So what I would do with this is I would ask them if this serial number translates to a lot code. And how, if it does or it doesn't. I mean, the law says they have to send a lot number, not a serial number. They're two different things. Actually, I'm going to use freeze by, right. So yeah, so everything else is pretty standard. But ask it that, I would call them, call your distributor or call your contact at Tyson if you have one, and ask how that serial number corresponds to lot number. Because if you're getting boxed beef from Iowa Beef Packers or any of the big guys, all of them have this all electronic. It's all RFID, radio frequency ID. I haven't actually worked with anybody that does that. Again, because of the problem of, you know, you gotta have really good inventory systems to make RFID worth it. So you must know the lot number, okay? And so if you're getting a carcass in from, you know, Barry, up at Maple Lane, he'll have a carcass number attached to that, okay? You write down the establishment number and the lot number, okay? Then, does anybody break down carcasses into primals? Break down lovable chunks of beef into primals? Create bench trim out of that? Or do you guys break down primals into subprimals and bench trim? Just primals. Okay. All right. So are you guys, anybody else getting carcasses? All right, come on, whole carcass utilization. It's the way of the future in local food, folks. So what the idea is that you take that information of establishment and lot number, and it follows the beef. Okay. So if you have a primal of boxed beef, with any luck, that's all the same lot number. Okay, it should be. Any bench trim that you create out of that has the same lot number as the primal, all right, and that's what you have to keep track of, along with the establishment number. Does that make sense? Okay, you can do this, like the way we have this written in the SOP is you take a piece of masking tape and you write the establishment number and the lot number on the bus tub that the bench trim goes in. That seemed like a low-tech, easy solution for that. Okay, so any product that is going to end up in the grind must have establishment number and lot number from where it came from, because that's where we find the problems is at the establishment. All right, tracking number has to stay with the trim, and then all of that information is going to get transferred to the log. All right, does that all make sense? So we receive stuff, we write down information, we keep that information with the trim as we create it, and with the retail cuts, because we need it for retail cuts too, I suppose. And then that all gets transferred to the ground beef production log when we start using that. Make sense? And that's pretty much the heart of what we're doing. There are a couple other things to add. All right, so does anybody have written cleaning and sanitizing procedures for their grinders? Yes. Can somebody tell me the difference between cleaning and sanitizing?
Cleaning is removing any visible particles and sanitizing is all bacteria.
Excellent. Yeah, so cleaning removes proteins and fats and visible particles. Sanitizing gets all the microbes. Most sanitizers don't work in the presence of organic material. That's why we clean first. Cleaning is mechanical action. Okay, you must clean and sanitize your grinder. I'm sure you guys are all doing it. Does anybody here grind in their walk-in? Grind under refrigeration conditions? Okay, that is my favorite. That is the single best thing you can do to control microbes in your ground beef is to grind under 40 degrees. All right, that is your single best risk mitigation factor. So good job, and plus it improves your shelf life and quality. Okay, so here's what we do: we ensure the grinder is clean and sanitized. All right, and we're going to end up writing that down on our log. All right, then we find all the beef that's going into a trim or going into a grind. All right, and we record all of that information on the log. All right, and then we grind. So then here's the part that's going to be a little complicated for everybody. Who here assigns lot numbers to grinds already? Is anybody assigning lot numbers once you grind? No. All right. You need to start assigning lot numbers. Okay. So since you don't have a way of assigning lot numbers, this is one way. You can do it however you want. I wouldn't call them Bob, but year or what do we say? Month, day, year, machine number. Does anybody run more than one grinder? You have 2 grinders. Okay, you have 3 grinders. Give your grinders numbers. One, like 1, 2, and 3 if they don't already have them. Okay? And just, grinder 2 is always grinder 2. Hang it on is like nail polish or something. Okay? Because that grinder number has to become part of your lot number. Okay? And then if you have sequences, like you did a morning grind and an afternoon grind, if you're using all the same component materials, that doesn't have to be a different lot number, and you can sequence them if you need to. Does that make sense? Okay? And so that's lotting. That is like the basics of lotting. And you can make up any lot numbers that you want. You can do Julian dating. You can, as long as you have a way of understanding your own lot numbers, that's all they care about. As long as your employee can say, okay, this is this lot, and this is when we worked on it, that's what they care about. Okay? So then the idea is that we record the lot numbers on the production log, and all the lot numbers from the incoming stuff that then got sent through the grinder ends up being associated with a lot number of ground. That's all that this is. Does that make sense? So we took a whole big number of lots, ground them together, and made a new lot number. Yes, sir?
So I'm just trying to understand that. If a store is receiving, a pallet of beef,
Yes.
it's got several different products on it.
Yeah.
Are they required, when that beef comes into the cooler and they're putting it away, to track that information, or does it only have to be tracked if it's touching the grinder? Like if that store gets in, a box of shoulder cloths, and none of that box is going to hit the grinder.
No, you don't have
Okay,
to.
so it only has to be tracked when it's going to touch the burger. So at receiving time, meat managers will have to stay in there and write down every lot number and everything on every box of meat that he gets in every delivery. Only if something out of that box is going to go and touch the grinder.
But if you're going to trim out those shoulder cloths, and that trim is going to go into the grinder, it's gonna hit the grinder and it has to be recorded at receiving.
But again, I was just looking.
Right, but how-
You don't have to log it, you just need to make sure everything that comes through the door is traceable, that it has
Right.
some identifying information. But you're right, you don't need to log it until you're processing it.
Right, so
Right.
when they're putting that load away in the morning, they don't need to, but if they're taking that box of clods into the cutting room and it's going into, could go into 2 or 3 different, batches of burger depending on fat content,
Right,
that's when it needs to be tracked.
Right,
That's
right.
when it's, okay.
and so, like you said, you're gonna have to carry that information forward, okay? So the information needs to be recorded somehow at receiving, if you don't already do receiving
Whether
logs.
you're gonna grind it or not.
Right, but that's just, and then, when we look at records review, you can figure out, well, how much am I receiving that I'm grinding, and how, that allows you to do some analysis on your receiving product. But no, it doesn't have to be recorded, but the information needs to stay with those primals, but it probably stays with those primals anyway.
Right, it is, most stores are gonna keep that.
Right.
The primals in that box until they're using it.
Yeah, exactly. It gets a little more complicated if you're doing whole carcass utilization, because then you get either a luggable chunk, as I call them, or a quarter or a whole half carcass of beef, and you have one carcass tag that comes in on it. That makes it a little more complicated. Then you're gonna have to, but you guys probably have one carcass tags. Thank you very much. Okay, so any other questions? All right, so then we have these lots that we're creating in your store, all right? Every time you clean and sanitize, or every time you introduce new material to the grinder, you have a new lot number. Okay, so back when I talked about sequencing, if you guys are doing custom grinds, so like I work with somebody where they do a regular grind and then they add in the dry aged beef, or they add in bacon, sounds really good. They start with their regular grind, all right, and then they add in the dry aged beef, and they take that lot number and they add a sequence number, okay? And then they add in the bacon, and they take that lot number plus sequence number, okay? Because it all has the same base, right? And you just have to figure out how that's gonna work in your establishment. I mean, are you guys making like multiple different kinds of custom grinds?
Yes.
Okay, so do those custom grinds, are they all gonna have kind of like a same base grind, or they're all just totally different? Okay, so then what I would do is I would figure out a way, I would write down all the different custom grinds that you do, or as many as you can, all right, and say this is how we're gonna lot the custom grinds. All right, and then you'll just keep, whenever you have that custom grind, you can either start a new, make a lot of photocopies of the log, and you can have one log per page, or however you decide to do that. Yes, sir?
If we're dividing, so we do in general about 5 different varieties of ground beef per day.
Okay.
And then we do lots on each variety of ground beef. So we've got conventional, we've got our natural, we've got our grass fed, and we've got extra lean 85, extra lean 85, which is 183. So if we were to start in the morning and start grinding Western, okay, got one muscle in there for our extra lean, and then we move on to our 85, which is blended muscles, that would be okay as a sequence.
Yes.
If I wanted to go switch to the all natural beef, are you saying that I'm gonna have to add that to the sequence, or should we be starting on a clean machine and doing a separate lot number? Or is there some way to combine them on the paperwork?
If you don't start out with a clean machine, it's a sequence, because all of that gravure that's left in your grinder will then get ground into whatever that third one is. So you can either sequence it, or you can start on a new machine and break down the other machine, and clean it and get it ready for another new lot number.
So you got 5 varieties of beef, they're all separate. The sequence would reflect all the varieties that went before that, if we decide to lump them together.
Yes,
And that's like a personal liability decision?
that's a risk mitigation decision on you guys, yeah. Exactly, and that's what, and you have to figure out what works for you. I mean, because y'all know how long it takes you to break down your grinder and clean and sanitize it. Y'all know how long the shifts are and how much beef you gotta grind, okay? When we look at doing recalls, by and large, we do them from clean to clean. And it depends on what your tolerance for a recall is. So if you do a sequential, all right, and you end up finding a problem in one of those a new machine, and you find problems in one lot that went on one machine, that's the lot that you recall, not all of them. And it just depends on your risk tolerance, and how much you trust your employees, and how much you trust your cleaning and sanitation, and what makes sense in your business. You know, if you have low risk tolerance, food is the wrong business to be in. And so we got to live with, you know, we got to make decisions and live with them. That's where testing can come in, you know, and give you, you know, a way to sleep at night. And how to do it, you know, and how to do that. Okay, does that all make sense? Any questions? All right, yes, sir.
Somebody, if a customer grabs a chuck rolls out of the case and asks to grind that,
Yes.
do you have to trace this?
Yep.
You do.
Yes, they specifically say that. So if your grinder is in your walk-in and you have one grinder dedicated to customer wants a ground chuck, I would sequence that. So it's whatever lot number, and, you know, establishment number, lot number, and then your own individual lot number. And if you're doing multiple kinds of grinds, it's a sequence. So, you know, grind number 1234-1 for customer number 1, 1234-2, and then you clean your grinder whenever you clean your grinder and start a new lot number. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. The other thing is that this is a little weird direction in the grinding log, but you have to define the time that you're grinding, okay? And Dirigo Food Safety defines the time that you're grinding as the time that the lot number is created. Because what we envisioned was you're going to have, you know, a whole bunch of tubs or bags or whatever of trim, okay? And then you're going to pull out the grinding log and you're going to create your internal lot number, all right? And we're considering that the time to grind. They don't give us a way to do that. Define it however you want. That's the way that made the most sense for us when we beta tested this. So you create the lot number and you write down the time you created the lot number. And that's what the USDA wants to see.
So even if you're creating the trim at the end of the day, and you might not grind that trim until the following morning,
Yeah.
you're going to log that when you created that lot, you're going to put the time as the night before and not when you grind it?
No, it's when you grind it, when you pull out, so you have trim left over from the next day, you're coming in tomorrow morning, and you're pulling out a ground beef log, all right, and your grinder's all clean and sanitized, you're creating that lot number, and that's the time of the grind. So the lot number is created at the time of the grind, all right, and then you just log whatever lot numbers that are going in that grind.
Okay, so, but I mean, if you know, a bigger establishment that produces more trim, they might have 3 or 4 logs, you know, wouldn't you want to create that lot number, you know, whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, so when you go back the next morning, it's, okay, this is lot 1, and you're in.
It depends, yeah, you can do that, it depends on how you're organized. Okay, if you're already organized that way, then do it that way, modify the SOP. Say, this is a definition of time to grind that we made up because they didn't put it in the guidelines, which means you can do whatever you want,
Right.
as long as it conforms.
Right, I'm just saying, I mean, you would need some way to, if you're producing that lug of trim the night before, and there's, you know, 3 or 4 different piles of that, you're gonna need to know the next morning
Right.
which lug is associated with which tractor.
Right.
So you're gonna need to create a
So
lot number,
that's a
essentially
more,
when
right,
you put it in the cooler. Or
Right.
when you put that, you know, lug on your bench and say, okay, this is what we want.
yeah.
This is what went in it.
And that may be the way that you do it, that you have a lug that's trimmed for multiple different primals. All of those primal numbers get associated with that lug, okay? But what happens then if you have this lug and this lug that has, you know, 3 other primals in it? That then comes together with one lot number in some establishments, so that might not be true in your establishment. You might just be grinding this lug and then define your lot number when you write that lug down. That make sense? Yes, sir.
I might be wrong, but it sounds like you're asking about the time on the lot number, and she's talking about what goes into the batch. Because you're saying we've got batches that were cut yesterday, should my lot number be associated with yesterday? She's saying the grind thing.
Yes.
And when you start
They
doing
want to
a
know,
new lot of grinding
they
time,
want you to track, not when you necessarily created that lot, but when you ground the lot.
When you ground the log.
when you dirty your grinder the first time.
Right, so that's the time of grind.
Use the time.
Yeah, so the time grind, because then that allows you to track clean to clean. Okay, and at the end of the day, you're gonna be tracking clean to clean. That's what we look for, is the clean to clean cycle, because that's when the microbes get interacted. Right? Clean to clean, okay? So thanks, yes, sir?
I want to back up to Rick's question. If a customer comes up, sticking a chuck rolls out of the case and says, grind this one.
Yes.
He likely hasn't reported that information from my understanding. Doesn't that throw the whole thing out? I mean.
But you have to institute systems so that you know that you can track on that tag that's on the sticker that's on that chuck. Has to tie back to a primal number if it's going to go into the grinder. Okay, people who are more creative than me may be able to figure out ways that you're going to be able to do that. But what I have people do when we do this is we do receiving logs, and we log everything. We log things. You know, there might be other ways of doing it, but that's how my little left brain works.
But short of that, you can't fulfill that process.
And comply with this.
And comply with this.
Correct.
The answer may not be a popular one, but the answer may be, no, I can't do that for you, but I can, what's that? I can grind something else, but I can't take that roast out of the case to you. The answer is no.
Yeah, I mean, that might be, that might be.
Anybody, you can see the discount.
Right, so.
Or you buy a small grinder that's all you do with it.
That's easy to break down and clean in, like in between, or you have, if you would like grind, you have in your case, we can grind these, and that's what you've recorded. So as many different places are here, there can be that many different solutions to that problem, as long as you think it through and it's logically defensible. Okay, that's what the USDA looks for, is logically defensible. Because the truth is if you have a problem, you are going to be on the phone to your lawyer. Okay, feel free to call me, but you're gonna need help logically defending this. Most of you are probably doing most of this correct. Okay, but it's just systematizing it, writing it down. Yes, sir.
We do our first grind at like say 9, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And we did like round, and then we don't do another grind till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Are they gonna say something between that time that machine wasn't clean?
It depends. Do you grind in your login?
Yeah.
Yeah, then it doesn't matter because there's no microbial.
So I don't have to clean it if I don't let it grind for 4 hours in between grinds.
Right, right. Unless you have, when I work with people who grind, I have to clean if the variety is sitting on that grinder for 4 hours. Because that's the way sanitizers work, and that lowers your risk. So, but it's whatever works there. But then, if you're doing another grind
On record that I ground at 10 in the morning, let's get on record that I ground at 10 to 2 in the afternoon, is that health inspector gonna say, well, was this day cleaned in between that time? And if I say no, am I gonna be in trouble?
No, as long as you sequence this second grind, that it's this lot number sequence 2. Right. Sequence 1, sequence 2, and it all ties back to the incoming lot numbers and establishment numbers. So the key is as long as you have that tie back to the establishment number and the lot numbers coming in, because that's what's going to be recalled. It's going to be a recall at the establishment. It's the likelihood that you guys are going to be implementing a recall that comes down on you, and yes, it's going to be expensive and all that sort of stuff, but you're going to be implementing a recall that comes down on you. Okay, so then, and it gets to your question. If we introduce new grind, introduce new material, we create a new lot number, but you can create a new lot number through sequencing. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a different lot number than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-1. Okay, yes, sir.
And I'm just curious, because I'm used to, if you're doing bench trim, absolutely clean it after you do bench trim. No matter what. Is that in the standard, or is that just a standard operating procedure we have? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's your, yeah.
But it's the same, like, our sequencing is we would do our 90% or 85, and then our trim, we'd do the trim, we clean, and then later in the day, we would either do a batch of 85 or 90.
Right.
Later in the day, and then clean, so we would clean at least twice a day.
Right.
If not more. But like
Yeah.
this question, if you ground it, if you didn't do your bench trim, if it was something else that you knew exactly, you had one origin, one batch, you would not, you could go that 4 hours as long as it was in the cooler, but.
Right. Right, and in terms of risk, the bench trim is your most risky product. They have a test at the USDA called an N60 test, all right, where they test bench trim. And when we do genomic analysis after outbreaks and stuff like that, it's always the bench trim. It is always the bench trim because people don't keep track of it the way that they want to. It's generally small pieces of meat that heat up pretty quickly, you know, and become room temperature, which is why I like sing the praises of people who do grinding and walking. But yeah, so just be wicked careful of your bench trim, okay? All right, so then this gets us to the log. And here's the thing that you have to know. If you did not write it down, it did not happen. End of story, okay? The second thing that you need to know is don't recopy records, all right? The final part of good record keeping is we do not recopy records. When I go in and I do an audit on a company, I expect to see dirty records. If I see pristine records, my spidey sense goes up, and I'm like, why are they lying to me? Did they fill all these records out last night? And that's happened, and then I get very upset. So records should be dirty, all right? If your records aren't dirty, it will make everybody say, what are you trying to hide? Okay, so dirty records are good.
So before you get there, we'll dirty up our paperwork?
Yes. Actually, stamp on it in the walk-in, you know. Okay. All right, so this is the final piece of paper that you got. Oh, and I didn't put this in there. At the end of your SOP, there are a couple of different things. This is, I don't know why this didn't make it in, sorry about that. But these last blocks here, this is more document control stuff, okay? So somebody with lots of authority signs at the bottom saying, I know that this SOP is active in our business, okay? That may or may not be the same person that signed at the top. The person who signs at the top is somebody who is defined in the responsibilities section. This one is somebody who may have overall control, or maybe the same person, okay? The other good record keeping practice is when you make changes to your SOP, you write down what those changes are. That's all. And you date them. All right? So that's what it is. Okay, so now we're moving to the ground beef production log. And this is how this works. All right, so this is another record. We're going to put our facility name and address up in the top because we have that on all of our pieces of paper. All right, and the way we wrote these records is that we had one record per date. Okay, so we don't do that much grinding. You know, you could probably fill in multiple lines for one on multiple dates, but that's not how we wrote it. So at least one piece of paper per day is how we wrote this, and that, you know, you just write down the date. Okay, and the person who is writing the record is the one that needs to fill in that date. Okay, all records get names and dates. Okay, so then this is how you log. All right, so you write down your lot number that you guys have designated. So today's date, the 28th? 28th. 29th? Okay. So if you're doing it the way we wrote, the lot number would be 032916 for you guys, -1, -2, -3. Okay? And that's your lot number. Okay? Or if you have, you know, multiple different grinds, then you have a sequence number, however you want to do it. Okay? The time of grind is when you're gonna, you know, when you've created this log and you're gonna start the grind. All right? And you write that down. Okay? You're gonna have multiple pieces of information because presumably we're taking multiple lots and putting them in one grind. And then you just X in saying, you know, it's like putting in quotes, so you don't have to just keep repeating it. That's all. That's just to make that a little bit easier. Okay? So that's those first two columns. We designate our lot number and we designate the time. Okay. The next part is the USDA wants to know the real name of everything that's going in. Okay? I don't know if this is because FSIS inspectors don't know the names, but this is what they say. So you not only do you have to keep track of the part number, but if you're getting a shoulder clod and it's bench trim from a shoulder clod, you need to write bench trim from shoulder clod. So then the supplier establishment number. For most of you probably don't get trim in from multiple different establishments, I would guess. Frankly, because there are not that many places that do an awful lot of beef killing. So the establishment number, and then the component part lot number. All right. So that shoulder clod has an establishment number, has lot number, and that's what you can put in there. Does that make sense? That makes sense for everybody? Okay, good. So those are that. It's not, you know, it's a lot of paperwork, but I don't think it's particularly complicated paperwork. Okay, date and time grinder, and related FCS, food contact surfaces. I threw this in because I am confident this is going to start affecting us with listeria testing. Okay? So if there are related food contact surfaces, so you have your grinder. If there's anything that you always use with your grinder, other food contact surfaces, which means surfaces that the food actually hits, that all has to be cleaned. Okay? People have different grinder setups, so make sure you're using clean and sanitized tubs along with your grinder. That's all it is. Okay? And then, and the most important part is, because we all believe in taking responsibility, is who's the employee doing this? Okay? We have a date at the top of the log, so we know when it's happening. We have a time of the grind, and now we need to know who the employee is. Okay? So it's a pretty good idea to have a subset of employees write down their initials on a piece of paper so everybody knows who everybody is. Okay? And just, you know, stick it somewhere so that if an inspector comes in and says, you know, my initials are MTP, you know, sees MTP on the log, he can go over and he says, okay, MTP is Michele Pfannenstiel. That's all that is. So that everybody's responsible. Okay? And this is the part that's really hard, not to go in afterwards and just initial. All right? But they got to do it all at the same time. That's them taking responsibility for recording this information. All right? That all make sense? Okay, and then I just left room for comments because I have yet to meet a log that doesn't need comments. All right. Any questions?
So is the time that's recorded just regular time, or is it 24-hour clock?
However you guys do it in your,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. As long as it's something explainable to your inspector and explainable to your employees. That's it. Yes, sir.
The component part supplier establishment number and the component part lot number, those are all gonna be on the boxes of beef that come in?
Yes.
Those are
Yes.
those numbers.
If they are not on boxes of beef that you come in, like we had with this, can I see your, so with here, all right, I'm gonna show you and then I'm gonna try and, so our question is that, is this serial number a lot number? Okay, here's the establishment number, all right? So if you really want to, you can go look up the name and address of those establishments. Okay, and then this doesn't say on there what it is, but presumably it says somewhere on the box what it is.
Supplier number, that's what this
The
is.
establishment number.
Okay, that's the establishment number.
Yeah,
Okay, right there.
yeah,
The
establishment
lot number
number.
you're saying is this one?
Probably, but we have to go check because they said serial number and not lot number.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Sure. Are you okay if we pass this around?
Yes.
Okay, so pass that around, everybody take a look at it. So now, this is, you know, and that brings up a really good point. Yes, sir?
Would this be the lot number? I see the establishment number, but I don't.
So that's the establishment number.
Yeah.
That is probably the lot number. But unless they tell you it's the lot number, you can't assume, so you have to call them. Okay. On there, I don't see a lot number on there. But you see, look at this. They do RFID. So their lot number is tied up into that RFID code. And that's probably going to be true of most of the people you deal with because you're getting beef in from big guys. Okay? So when you guys get anything that looks like a unique identifier that doesn't say lot number, call them, send an email, and say, is this a lot number? And you're going to have to be able to figure out the lot numbers that come in because the law says the lot number. So serial number or product ID isn't good enough. It must be lot number. Okay, so now, with any luck, our friends at the big beef packing houses will then start putting lot numbers on things for you, but it's going to take a little, doing. All right? Yes, sir.
Nowhere on here, that's weight, so you don't need to document.
No, you do not, okay, so that's a good thing. When they originally wrote this, they had weights in it. Weight has no tie back to food safety, so they took it out. Now, for your own internal records, everybody keeps tracks of weights, right? You need to know what your wastage is, you need all those sorts of things. So you may want to modify that and include weight for your own internal records. It's not a part of the law. Okay? So that would be an internal record keeping, your own internal quality management system. All right? Questions? Good. Okay. Okay, so, well, that came out really, really small. All right, if you look down at the bottom, there are a couple of things that I put in footers. All right, we live in the land of litigation. Okay, if you put trade secret, confidential, commercial information, you are less likely to have your documents FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA-able. Okay, you're less likely to have your documents FOIA'd by the press. All right, because there are a few things that the press likes to do more when there's a recall and start digging through what is freely available that the government has to disclose. All right, if you say this is trade secret, confidential, commercial information, you have a higher likelihood of those documents being less FOIA-able and not ending up in the hands of reporters who are trying to dig up dirt on your business. Okay, I recommend putting that at the bottom of every single document, and it may help, it may not, but it can't hurt. I mean, you know, you put it in the footer and it comes out on every document. Okay, then the final element of the document is where on the log where it says reviewed by and date. All right, remember when I talked about verification? Am I doing what I said I would do? Am I telling the truth? Okay. You now have a way of looking to see if you're telling the truth because you have a written standard operating procedure. Okay? What you then do, once a week, twice a month, however often you want to deal with paperwork, at the end of every day, it doesn't matter. All right, somebody who is not the person that made the log, hopefully, because I think you all have bigger than 1 gun shots at your meat counter. The person who didn't create the log, then reviews the log and said, is all the information on here incorrect? That's records review. That is a huge step in verification, okay? And then you just sign that off. And I, as an inspector or an auditor, all I do is I flip through logs, okay? And I look to see if somebody has looked at those logs to make sure they're correct. If I see those signatures, I spend substantially less time looking at the logs, okay? And so that's just one of the ways that you can assure anybody who comes in that you've actually been doing verification. Telling them that, yes, I'm telling them the truth, and I know that I'm telling them the truth. Okay? All right, and I think, my friends, that is about it. There we go. Good job. You guys have been a great audience. Any questions? We'll start here and go around.
This just pertains to beef, correct?
Beef only.
Okay.
Not even any other ruminants.
Okay.
So if you're grinding lamb, it doesn't matter.
Alright, so we make our own sausage and we grind pork and stuff too, but we use a separate grinder for it all. So we
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Just checking.
beef only. Beef only. Somebody over here, yes.
We started labeling all of our boxes kind of with an in-house system, stickers, you know, A1, A2, on their way in the door, and photo documenting all the labels,
Oh, good, okay.
so that we could use A1 as a shorthand for that box
Mm-hmm.
on our, paper copy.
Okay.
So, if the digital was not really convenient, but I didn't know if that counted as a digital record, because I have a chip in the department, and then we're storing onto a flash drive our record of all the moving boxes, so that if we have a problem with this lot, and say, A5 is a component, we'll go back and trace it to the chip and find out all the information for the lot number and all that on that box that is labeled as A5. Is that sufficient? Can we keep doing that if I have a tag with our lot of beef that has A5, A25, A17, all the pieces that went into it?
Right.
And that ends up in our log?
The answer would be yes, but you're going to have to add pieces of paper to that drawing. that says, you know, here are all the lot numbers that go into 8.5, and then you write 8.5 on that grinding lot. As long as they can trace, I think you'll be okay. I think that's, you know, the idea is that, yeah, yeah, it's logically defensible. You know?
And that's what we want to know.
Yeah, no, that's logically defensible. So as long as you have a way to trace that, if you end up, you know, like, then you need to have this information readily tied to this. And so if I would staple another piece of paper or have something else that has that establishment number, the component name, and the component lot number, and then just, you know, then that's all tied. It's all tied together as long as it's written down somewhere.
But it's gotta be paper copy together, you know? So
Yeah, unless-
having a digital file somewhere else, even if I've got access to it on the site.
If your digital records meet the requirements of USDA electronic record keeping,
Which means they have to go to the cloud.
they have to go in the cloud and they have to be password protected and they can't be changeable. Okay? That's the hard part. They can't be changeable. So recording it in an Excel spreadsheet is good enough. It has to be a locked spreadsheet that's not changeable once things are recorded. So it can be a locked spreadsheet with document tracking on it. That's password protected.
So having a chip with all that information isn't really helpful. I've gotta have all of the lot numbers, all of the packing dates, and everything written on paper attached to something somewhere with our logs.
Right, but what I would do is, what you can do, is do both processes simultaneously, okay, and prove that you know what you're talking about with the chip process and the paper process, and then phase out the paper process.
Okay.
That's what I would do that. Do both processes simultaneously, do it for 30 or 60 days, and say, we know what we're doing, we've gone in, we've audited it ourselves, we've looked at everything, it all ties together, and this is how we do it. So as long as it's tie backable, and frankly, the likelihood that anybody who comes in and inspects your place knows the rules of electronic record keeping as well as I do is probably pretty small. So it works. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wait. Here. Okay. Yes, sir.
We make our own sausage in the store now. Do I have to track all the trim that goes into
Does it have beef in it?
No, it doesn't.
Then you don't have to track it. Beef only.
Just a quick throwback regarding the bench trim grind.
Yeah.
The grinder does not have to, it's not a requirement to have it cleaned and sanitized after every use.
No. Well, so, I mean, if you don't
So if I
refrigerate
grind
it.
12 times a day, it's not required that I clean after every use.
No, but your lot numbers, your internal lot numbers are gonna have to reflect some sort of sequencing that this is the grind, this is the lot number associated with this grind time and it's time back to a clean time. So as long as you can kind of logically keep track of that, then you're good. Yes, sir.
All right, so you get a lot number, you do your grind, you do 60 pounds, you tray it up, you wrap it. If there's an issue with that lot, how is anybody gonna retract that package of hamburger back to that lot unless you have that package lot number on the actual package?
That's what they do. That's why traceback in food recalls is so hard. So unless somebody has taken that and put it in their freezer at home, and somebody else, and a completely separate customer, got sick, okay, and they go through the garbage, and they try and find that lot number, and then they go and they ask you who else bought that lot number that day, and then they go to their house.
So I think his question is that there's no way those scales are gonna put lot number on every package of hamburger.
Yeah, your scales are gonna have to start doing it.
Some of what it gets back to.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit, I mean, you're talking about every store in the United States of America is gonna have to buy a new scale that
You're
can
gonna have to put
digitally
lot
that
numbers on your ground packaging.
Yeah.
Yep. Every package of ground beef is gonna have lot number on it. Because that's what the USDA wants to know. When they go into a consumer's freezer because there has been an outbreak, they want to be able to take a look at that and see a lot number and know everything that's in that ground
Can we
beef.
use a sell-by date as that?
Yeah, as long as you define it in your SOP. Okay, but if you have a sell-by date and you're doing 5 different grinds that you do in one day, those are all gonna have the same sell-by date.
So that'll work too.
So as long as you can figure out and you can trace back that sell-by date, if you want to do a sell-by date as your lot number, knock yourself out. As long as you can trace it back all the way through your system to when that boxed beef came in your door. Okay, so if you want to do sell-by date, do that, but make sure you can differentiate this custom grind from this custom grind that you did it the same day.
You have to have some kind of code.
Yes, sir.
You know, ideally, the traceability is you want to go back and you want to hold that producer accountable.
Yes.
I mean, yes, you want to have public safety, but it's really to go back and whose house needs to be put in order
Right.
at a production plant out in the Midwest, not necessarily what's happening within your meat grinder, because
Right, because the truth of the matter is that when we do the whole genome analysis, it's not the grinders at your establishments that are the problem with E. coli. Now, it's a different story with Listeria and your slicers, but not the same. It's not the same thing with grinders. The problem, by and large, is something screwed up back at the factory. Okay, it's just that they lose the trail when they get to you guys, which makes the outbreak investigation almost impossible. Okay, and then the other part of it is that most of your E. coli problems are leafy green vegetables, which this doesn't really solve at all.